Introduction. Sustainability is increasingly critical in sports technology and equipment because the industry relies heavily on energy-intensive manufacturing, synthetic materials and global supply chains, and high product turnover. From performance footwear to advanced apparel textiles, production processes generate significant carbon emissions, water use, and material waste. As consumer demand grows and climate risks intensify, brands must innovate to balance performance with environmental responsibility. Nike, one of the world's largest sportswear companies, acknowledges substantial environmental footprint, particularly across its global supply chain. Through its Move to Zero initiative and science-based targets, Nike positions sustainability as a climate responsibility and a driver of long-term innovation and competitiveness. He anchors its climate strategy in science-based targets validated by the Science Based Targets Initiative. In fiscal year 2019, Nike committed to reducing absolute greenhouse gas emissions by 2013, targeting a 65% reduction in Scope 1 and 2 emissions and a 30% reduction in Scope 3 emissions from the 2015 baseline. Scope 1 and 2 emissions stem from approximately 1,000 owned Nike facilities, aircraft, and vehicles that are directly controlled by the company itself. Scope 3 emissions, however, arise from its global supply chain and logistics network that represent the majority of the company's carbon footprint. In fiscal year 2024, Nike reported a 29% reduction in Scope 3 emissions since 2020, with more than 60% of production volume sourced from suppliers that have science-based climate targets. Operationally, Nike had achieved 96% renewable electricity across owned and operated facilities, with all Nike Air manufacturing powered by 100% wind energy. The company is also electrifying vehicle fleets and improving aviation efficiency. As a founding member of the Asia Clean Energy Coalition, Nike supports renewable adoption in manufacturing hubs while reducing air freight by 80% and piloting hydrogen and green methanol shipping solutions to cut transport emissions. As short-term benchmarks, Nike established 2025 goals that include lowering operational greenhouse gases by 70% and powering all owned and operated facilities with 100% renewable electricity. The company is also working closely with major suppliers to cut supply chain emissions by expanding renewable energy use and improving energy efficiency. In addition, Nike intends to reduce approximately 0.5 million metric tons of greenhouse gases by increasing the share of environmentally preferred materials such as recycled polyester and other lower carbon outputs. Looking further ahead, Nike has pledged to reach net zero emissions across its entire value chain by 2050, reflecting a long-term climate commitment grounded in measurable science-based targets. Nike Renewable Energy Transition is a core pillar to its Move to Zero initiative, focusing on how energy is sourced across operations and global supply chain. The company reports that 96% of electricity is used in its own and operated facilities is matched with renewable energy. This is achieved through a combination of long-term power purchase agreements with wind and solar farm, on-site solar installations at campuses and distribution centers, renewable energy credits in regions with limited infrastructure, and continuous energy efficiency upgrades such as LED lighting and smart energy systems. Several Nike Air manufacturing facilities now operate entirely on wind power, significantly lowering the carbon intensity of footwear production. Beyond its own operations, Nike prioritizes supplier partnerships because most of its emissions come from materials and manufacturing. As a founding member of Asia Clean Energy Coalition, Nike supports policy reform and renewable energy access in key manufacturing regions like Vietnam. Through supplier climate programs, the company works with factories to phase out coal boilers, adopt renewable energy electricity and set science-based targets. This approach ensures that renewable energy adoption extends deep into Nike's global value chain, creating a meaningful long-term impact.
Most of Nike's carbon emissions come from its supply chain, not from its offices or stores. This includes contract factories that manufacture footwear and apparel, and the suppliers that produce materials. To address this, Nike works directly with suppliers to transition factories away from fossil fuels and towards renewable electricity. This includes installing solar systems, improving access to renewable power grids, and replacing coal-based boilers used for heating and processing. Nike is also a member of the Asia Clean Energy Coalition, which brings together global brands, energy developers, and policymakers. Through this coalition, Nike helped support renewable energy purchasing mechanisms in major manufacturing countries such as Vietnam, allowing factories to buy clean electricity legally and at scale. In addition, Nike encourages its strategic suppliers to set science-aligned emissions targets and improve their energy efficiency. This approach reflects a systems-level strategy rather than only improving Nike-owned facilities. Materials are the largest contributor to the environmental footprint of a Nike product, accounting for more than 70% of its total carbon impact. Move to Zero focuses heavily on redesigning materials rather than only improving factories. Flyknit is a precision knitted upper that uses only the required yarn for each shoe, which significantly reduces cutting waste compared with traditional stitch uppers. Each Flyknit upper also uses yarn produced from recycled plastic bottles. Recycled polyester is now widely used in apparel and footwear textiles. Compared with virgin polyester, it reduces carbon emissions by up to 30%. Fly leather is another innovation where at least 50% recycled leather fibers are combined with synthetic fibers using a water-powered process. It performs like traditional leather but produces less waste and lower climate impact. Together, these material substitutions demonstrate design-led sustainability. Nike reports that it now diverts more than 1 billion plastic bottles per year into recycled polyester yarns used in jerseys and shoe uppers. Recycled polyester can reduce carbon emissions by up to 30% compared to virgin polyester, while recycled nylon can reduce emissions by up to 50%. In footwear production, Nike also reuses manufacturing scrap. A significant proportion of air soles and foam components now include recycled factory waste, and over 90% of scrap from air manufacturing, which is reused in new foam systems. These figures show that material innovation is not only experimental but scaled across commercial production. Move to Zero strongly supports circular design by keeping products and materials in use for as long as possible. Reuse a shoe allows consumers to return worn shoes to Nike collection points. These shoes are then processed into materials for reuse. Nike Grind takes factory scrap and end-of-life footwear and grinds them into rubber, foam, and fiber materials that are reused in new products and sports infrastructure such as courts and playgrounds. Nike Refurbish extends product life by reselling gently used or returned footwear and apparel through official Nike channels. Together, these systems reduce landfill waste, reduce demand for virgin materials, and extend product life cycles. I'll be now passing it on to Kai Gorin.
The waste management activities of Nike prove that it is highly dedicated to ensuring that materials are not placed in landfills in its international operations. The firm records almost 100% diversions of waste across its premises. In the manufacturing segment, Nike has been recording 100% diversion of waste in Tier 1 footwear and apparel factories over a series of consecutive years, which implies that the waste is produced at a large finished goods plants does not go to landfills. About 98% of total waste is also landfill diverted at distribution centers, retail locations, and corporate offices. Considering the operations of the company in totality, around 75% of the diverted waste materials are recycled into new materials, with the remaining constituent being sent to the waste energy processes where the materials are burned down to produce energy instead of just going to waste. Waste reduction is also incorporated in the processes of designing and production at Nike. Designers employ high-level digital and pattern-making skills to reduce waste in material cutting, the choice of materials that results in a smaller number of offcuts, and collaboration with suppliers to enhance packaging solutions. Moreover, the company manages waste in its logistics and supply chains. Efforts like recycling of excess materials like packaging and reusing of textiles through the Textile to Textile Recycling Program stimulates the recorded use of surplus materials. In fiscal year 2024, this initiative will have alone collected some 135 metric tons of polyester scrap and textile trimmings, helping a more closed-loop recycling system. As one of its transportation strategies, Nike has done a massive switch to ocean shipping against air transport with enhanced production planning. This is a crucial waste reduction method as well as a way of lowering emissions. Nike has since 2020 reduced fuel consumption by decreasing air shipments by about 80% due to this strategy, which also decreased packaging waste and inefficiencies in the logistics. Moreover, the company has started introducing biofuels in the ocean shipping operations, such as the use of biodiesel manufactured out of used cooking oil in Latin America that has already cut hundreds of metric tons of CO2. Nike has also keeps on urging its shipping companies to switch to more environmentally friendly fuel. In general, the waste performance of Nike can demonstrate the effect of such initiatives. By the fiscal year 2024, Nike factories and supply chain partners have recycled over 69,500 metric tons of footwear materials, including factory scrap and post-consumer shoes. Move to Zero initiatives have progressed efficiently and evidently in the minimization of waste, which is demonstrated by massive recovery of materials and the near removal of landfill waste in all operations. Monitoring through its annual impact reports, these reports indicate measurable progress towards the company's 2025 and 2030 sustainability goals. Nike has achieved a 69% reduction in Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions across its own facilities compared to baseline levels. By the 2023 financial year, these facilities operated with 96% renewable electricity coverage. The company has also ensured that waste from all Tier 1 footwear and apparel manufacturing is diverted from landfills, consistently meeting this objective. Nike continues to improve recycling and material usage within production. Between 2022 and 2024, more than 1 billion plastic bottles were redirected into manufacturing processes, while nearly 70,000 tons of footwear byproducts were recycled, an increase from approximately 50,000 tons in 2020. These sustainability outcomes are independently verified rather than solely self-reported. Nike's data on emissions, energy consumption, and waste management is audited by third-party accountants and reported using internationally recognized GRI and SASB standards. The company's emission reduction goals are also aligned with science-based targets supporting measurable climate action. Nike is working towards achieving 100% renewable energy in use in its own facilities before 2025. Nike's efforts have gained recognition from independent organizations, including participation in the Science Based Targets Initiative and inclusion in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. Despite criticism regarding possible greenwashing, lawsuits connecting to the Move to Zero campaign have been dismissed, suggesting credible progress towards its sustainability commitments. While this initiative highlights Nike's commitment to sustainability, it has also faced criticism and ongoing challenges. One major concern involves allegations of greenwashing, with critics arguing that Nike's sustainability messages may appear stronger than the actual environmental progress achieved. The company's use of broad terms such as sustainable materials has also been questioned by regulators, emphasizing the need for clear communication and greater transparency to maintain consumer trust. Another challenge lies in Nike's extensive global supply chain, which produces most of the company's carbon emissions. Because much of its manufacturing is outsourced to independent factories, Nike has limited control over production methods and energy use. This complicates emission reduction efforts, particularly as global demand for Nike products continue to grow. Nike has also been criticized for continued reliance on synthetic and recycled plastics, including recycled polyester. Although recycling reduces waste, these materials may still contribute to microplastic pollution and dependence on fossil fuels. In addition, labor conditions within supplier factories remain a concern, with advocacy groups calling for stronger worker protection and fair wages. Transparency and accountability across Nike's large supplier network also remain significant challenges. Critics argue that maintaining high production levels while pursuing ambitious sustainability goals, particularly zero waste, makes achieving these targets difficult. In conclusion, the Move to Zero campaign organized by Nike is the first successful company strategy that combines corporate expansion with environmentally responsible practices. The obvious goals like zero carbon and zero waste of the initiative and the open metrics of progress covered in the annual report by Nike demonstrates the significant progressive movement. Nike is ambitious with tangible outcomes by pioneering in its materials, example Flyknit and recycled fabrics, redesigning its products to be circular, and altering its operations and supply chain. According to academic and industry commentators, Move to Zero is one of the best examples of the sustainable revolution in the clothing industry. The success of the initiative will in the end be measured by the fact that global emissions and waste will proceed to reduce, and this will be extremely difficult without constant innovation, strict accountability, and extensive cooperation that should not focus on one company.